welcome to the, how was your morning like so far?
So far, great. So far, great. You got it.
590.
Use your. So it's my concern is not about your choice to offer amendment. It's my concern is with what process has you sort of walking into the gauntlet here. So it's Venus.
It's been pre-discussed.
Yes, one thing
He's saying
yes. And
Okay.
so let's just hear the amendments so we know what it is. And we'll discuss it later. And if we have follow-up questions, we'll can schedule a conference on it. But really, our main order of business is to go through the amendments before and compare that, because we have to divide up sections, we have a caucus of the whole to get ready, and then we have a full report to get ready, and then we're gonna offer an amendment, this one. The draft 4-1 amendment on top of all that, so you're flying into a heavy air traffic zone, that's all.
If you would prefer that I come back tomorrow,
So if you could, how about just.
I can just give you
us a
the
walkthrough, like.
I bet I can do it
it's
in
pretty short.
2 minutes. Okay, so for the record, Wendy Harrison, Senator Wyndham District. I have had a concern about things that are done through Act 250 that are beneficial to the state that would not be included in tier 1A because they're not currently under municipal authority, similar to the transit amenities bill. So the two issues that I've discovered so far are transportation, both in mechanisms and in funding, and also housing funding, affordable housing funding specifically. There already is a section, I think it's section 39 now, in your bill, our bill, that has a housing, affordable housing study. And so I'm proposing a similar study for transportation. It's currently Act 250 provides for two things to happen. One is payments that go directly to transit authorities, to transit providers. That are required in acknowledgement of traffic that is caused by large it's typically ski resorts, but there is also someone in Burlington that has to do this. So I don't want to lose that ability. And then there is also a separate process, Act 145 or 149. That the Department of Transportation already does, that they implement through Act 250, and that's transportation demand management and also impact fees. And those two abilities and restrictions and opportunities for the state would be lost if we don't do something. So the Agency of Transportation is supportive of this and they're willing to host the study. There's no fiscal implication except for keeping revenues in the future to the state. But so far, no one is opposed to this bill.
Okay, great. Who can speak on behalf of transportation?
Michelle Bowman?
Yep. Okay. And did you get any testimony from other folks who could be interested, like NRB or?
Yes, I talked to NRB about it. They seemed fine. They were most of my conversations about this were trying to find out all of the situations where Act 250 benefits could be lost.
Right. And how about did you talk to BAFTA or the RPC?
Yes, and they're yes, and they're fine. Or
So I mean.
so you want to talk to
No,
them?
well, just
Yeah,
I think before we would vote, we vet the language. Some
okay,
people interested in whatever stakeholders.
okay.
And I just wondered if, when you say fine, it's fine That's one of those interesting words, sometimes it means they don't actively oppose, sometimes it means they love, but they didn't say it quite out loud.
My sense is they think it's a good idea. They haven't seen this particular language because this was just finished yesterday, but I'll send it to them right away so that they have it heads up.
Okay, great. Any committee questions for senators? Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I guess I'm a little confused by the amendment and I apologize. I wanted to look at the transportation demand management section. So you're saying that with our current draft of the bill, we would be removing the ability of AOT to enforce transportation demand management strategies?
They
So
they enforce it through Act 250 on new developments. If Act 250 does not apply, say in the towns, in the tier 1 areas, they don't have a way unless the town calls them in. To
Yeah, that was-
specifically enforce it, but the towns don't necessarily know to do that.
But when you say the enforce, so my understanding of a TDM strategy would be requiring carpool.
Sure.
And there's no enforcement mechanism that that AOT has to say, from my understanding, you as a business, and I could be wrong, that you as a business have to have carpool strategies to be able to get X, Y, Z.
There is that ability in the development review process. They
Okay.
can require that.
Okay.
And they can require a range, and there's a lot of flexibility
Okay, so they do that,
in this Act 145 process.
but I guess I don't understand why it would be going away.
It would be going away because it's based on Act 250.
And because you're in 1A, you wouldn't, but if you're in 1B2, you would still have that.
Wherever Act 250 would apply, V-Trans would have the opportunity to use that process.
And this is
To
just a
review.
study to do that, not a,
It's a study to figure out how to keep V-Trans in the loop.
okay. Cause I would say why we wouldn't allow, well, I understand, but that's a bigger question, is it seems like a loss for tier 1A communities.
Yeah.
So I
That's my concern.
kind of wish that we had the ability to not have that loss, but I understand.
That was my initial proposal. But then as we got closer and closer to where we are now,
Maybe it's a study.
yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Great. Any other questions? We will have a chance to come back to this tomorrow, but since we're short of time this morning, thank you for.
Okay,
introducing-
and thank you for the time.
No worries. Well, if we have questions, we'll reach out to maybe have more discussion tomorrow
Sure,
or
I am available. I am in the building.
It'll be done on third reading though, that's.
for certain.
Oh, it'll definitely be on third reading. It won't be today. I'm not expecting that or proposing that.
Great. Thank you.
I sent it to the board. I didn't send it to
Could you
committee assistant.
Yeah, could you send it to Olivia?
Yes.
I'm gonna post it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you know what?
Yes, please. Back to our previously scheduled programming. So for folks who are keeping up with the evolving joint amendment from senators from the two committees, we're looking at draft 4.1 up to the amendment to 8687, dated 5/1/24, and stamped 9/35 PM. So, good morning, Counselor. Can you walk us through the last round of changes? And so for committee members, this is, when I last met with Senator Ron Hinsdale, and we got down to yay or nay on some points of contention, I went ahead and accepted what I thought was the closest thing I could to our committee's intent as I understood it. Of course, it's subject to you each. I'm acknowledging that you might say that's a bridge too far, or you may not want to be in the amendment anymore, but.
As long as you kept tandem parking out of there.
There's a new version of it, 5D.
Only behind my car.
I did
What?
see the part about the hotel motel thing, just getting
Oh, she's
It got obliterated.
Got rid.
Which is a disappointment, but, it's not gonna make me take my name off the amendments.
Right, well,
So,
I assume you fought as hard as you could, and then you gave it your best shot.
but everything else, I've looked through, I feel okay with it, I can just say that right now.
Okay.
But,
well, you've highlighted changes, right? So.
Yeah. Do you want us to say more about the process?
Sure, so I think we'll go through this, and when we finish our walkthrough, see where we all are. But maybe sort of right where we are, as supporting the amendment, staying on the amendment, it's individuals, then I'd like to do the divvying up process we talked about, and then there'll be some prep for, so Senators White and Watson have offered to present some sections, for which I'm
What sections we'll find out.
grateful. Senators McDonald and McCormick, if you want to jump in, we can get all 5 actors on the stage, but no obligation. At any rate, what
I'm pretty sure I actually said that,
your game,
I don't.
okay, all right. Jeremy McDonald, you want to present anything in particular? Okay.
Just do it.
So the game plan, whatever, the way this is all gonna unfold is we're convening as a Senate at 11. We're going to 12, I mean, to do other business. I don't know if the 289 will come up then or not, that'd be nice to move that along, but already gets, anyway, at 12, we're taking a break, to get lunch. 12:30, we're convening as a committee of the whole or whatever on the Senate floor, the way Senator Kitchell presented the budget. So we'll be standing up front to walk through the sections that we're reporting, explaining the sort of odd situation that we're asking people to vote on a report and 2 reports on it. So our report, the report of finance, the report of approach, acknowledging that we're about to offer today an amendment after we work through all that will make substantial changes to what's already been put into the calendar. And my thought was, we think a lot about this, to say, as we do the walkthrough, this is a section that is going, we could say, they're very low for it normally. There's substantial changes, here's what it's doing, and I'm flagging this for you, all of you that in the amendment to follow. We'll get into some more details before, let's not really talk about this because it's gonna be gone. So Watson,
just thinking through this, process wise. The finance and the approach amendments don't affect anything that's in our amendments.
No.
Okay, so.
What? They do, but what is your question?
Well, my question was, if they do affect it, then maybe this doesn't work. I was thinking maybe we could go, like, we do our report and then our amendment to the report and then the book post and then, no, we can't do that.
No, I spent a significant amount of time calculating all of the amendments to line up,
Okay,
and it is in the proper order,
okay,
and it's going to be fine. It is going to work, this is how the normal process flows.
okay. Thank you. I try.
You'll be on
You're
the
right.
house, you have the legislative council, so. Yep, it's gonna be fine, and this amendment encompasses the appropriations and the finance amendment, so
Okay,
it's all in one place in here.
great. Okay, thank you.
between,
Section by section reflects those things as well.
thank you. So council is lining up for us, and Secretary Bloomberg's not gonna let us back out of order.
Okay, that's fine, that's.
But it's close communication with them as well, we have it, it's gonna be fine. Yeah.
All right, so let's do the walkthrough and then we'll go on to the logistics from here to floor report and vote. So that committee of the whole goes 12:30 to 1, and then we jump right on this. Where we can now come gavel off of. Mr. Chakowski. I don't know what we're gonna do if we don't start every day this way.
Well, we're all gonna go home. I'm gonna go sleep, so. Before you is draft 4.1, and this is the. This is the Bray, Brown Hinsdale, Economic Development Natural Resources Compromise Amendment. It is largely what you saw yesterday. Changes from yesterday are highlighted in yellow. And so the first change is on page 17. I will say one other thing, because clearly everyone is reading this document very carefully right now. There are a few small things that are not highlighted that were genuine typos that have been added back in. That were not, I'm not hiding things, but for example, on page 16, the revision authority provision was not in the last draft, and it should have been. So that is not, between drafts, I dropped a few things because of the organized process we were following. And so those things are not highlighted in those drafts because the substance of the language had not changed. I just moved things around.
That's fair.
Something,
Is a nefarious section moving on your part, yeah.
yes. It's just incompetence. So on page 17, yesterday after I left and while I was still here, we discussed some minor changes to the Act 250 Appeals Study section. And so those changes are reflected here. And so the study is now due January 15th. They shall issue a report evaluating whether to transfer the appeals or whether they should remain at the Environmental Division of the Superior Court. The board shall convene a stakeholder group that at a minimum shall be composed of the following representatives: the Vermont Association of Realtors, a representative of nonprofit housing, oh, that was already there, but a representative of for-profit housing development interests, a representative of commercial development interests, an engineer with experience in development. Those have been added specifically to this list. Also, the board shall provide notice of the stakeholder meetings on its website, and each meeting shall provide time for public comment. And the report shall at a minimum recommend the following things. And then on page 18, jurisdictional opinion appeals have been added as something for them to consider.
Great. Thank you. Any, so we'll do the pause as we go. Everyone okay? Yep. Right. Thank you.
All right, so on page 33, something you all discussed while I was out of the room was the requirement. Last year's bill, Act 47, was the requirement that projects under the to qualify for the exemption we were required to request a jurisdictional opinion. Line 20 on page 33 strikes that entire requirement, and so it defaults to the existing law, which is that anyone may request a jurisdictional opinion.
Very perfect. And the whole conversation goes away.
So.
Well, and so there, that isn't, there's not all those words are on the page, so you'll have to remember that.
Yes, make it a note.
And it is not a section by section.
I would request not to do this section.
And
Point, I think the chair would be very.
then vice chair. The way it wants.
Again, she's thinking about that, right?
Would be great.
Got it. Thank you.
The next change is on page 35. So talking about tier 1B, there's language added. If municipality seeks to be excluded from tier 1B, it shall lose any center or neighborhood designations and be ineligible for future designation until it seeks tier 1B status.
This was one where that seemed entirely punitive to me. And this is one where Senator Ron Hinsdale asserted that this is all about economic development in designated areas and the near and dear to the jurisdiction of that committee. And so and when something was a point of contention and more clearly economic development oriented, like designations, money incentives, tax breaks, etc. I think okay, I don't like it. I don't like sort of the spirit of it, but It was an acquiescence on my part.
Okay, so designation of tier 1Bs probably won't happen until 2026.
We have time.
And
Yeah.
so some of these elements of this bill in general may need to be reviewed in the future.
Right, thank you for that reminder, because there's a long rollout.
A lot of these things have delayed timelines into the future.
I'm not going to suggest a new draft or anything. I just want to express out loud that I don't love the word seeks. Which, well, unless you feel like that has a clear enough definition. I wonder if, like, what constitutes seeking, like if a select board talks about it and is like, yeah, we should do that. Do you know, like, I don't know what the threshold is for seeks.
Noted.
That's all.
Right, because he chooses.
Or applies, because it's an opt-out process, so once they have submitted the application. Whatever, I think it's not worth being. I just wanted to point it out and I'm happy to move on.
What, can you remind us of how that, what's going on that brings them in, under the RPC map will designate them as tier 1B. It's going to be submitted and the board will be reviewing. And then at that point, the town might say, oh, passively, we will be swept into this new categorization. We may want not to be categorized that way for whatever reason. And they would apply to the board to say, where would. I don't know if they have to be given permission to leave, or they simply notify the board, we're out.
So.
I know it's coming in 26, but what is the process? We just, they notify the board or they ask permission to be out?
So the sentence immediately preceding.
I know this is gonna be embarrassing.
So they may formally request of the board that they be excluded, and they have to have adopted the ordinance stating so.
So they're seeking exclusion, but they don't have a right to be out. They have to get permission from the board.
No,
No.
so you're taking issue with the word request as opposed to declare or something?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, that's.
Fix it next year.
Okay. Live and learn. Onward and upward. It's 2026.
Glad you guys are reading the book closely today. So,
Wait, what is tier 1B as?
On page 43,
Mr. Chair, I apologize. Could I just note something in this section that I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. It's also want to ask council if I'm catching something that's not really there. And so can I just read, it's about the tier 1A right below that section. Is that all right? So it looks to me, the House passed bill. Had a process for tier A designation, and part of that process was an appeal of tier 1A designation. And that seems to have brought out of
That section is gone.
and so that was intentional.
It's where the bill is silent on it.
So just so you know, and I have to go actually to the House Energy Department because Representative Sims is trying to put that same amendment. That's in the House miscellaneous ag bill and into 213, so I have to run in just a minute, but just so you know, like just maybe we could talk about this more, but this happened with the Growth Center program when there was some Act 250 exemptions and there was silence on whether you could appeal. And when all the Supreme Court, it was BNRC, I was actually the lawyer, and the Supreme Court held if the legislature doesn't say that there's an appeal, there's no appeal of an action like this. And I know I listened to the Senate Economic Development's discussion of this, and I know that there was concern that there's no appeal of 1B once the board approves it, and tier 3 doesn't have an appeal, but 1A did, and the reason is because 1A is a full exemption from Act 250. Act 250 doesn't apply at all. 1B is the
All sorts of activity.
yeah, and then tier 3 is a rule now. So there, like, we actually did advocate for a tier 3 appeal when we had, designation of resources and jurisdiction attaching, that's not how it works now. And one B, because it's limited to housing, and housing is the issue, right? We were willing to basically say, well, that's not as broad as an exemption. So we do think this is a big deal. If you don't say that there's an appeal based on that Supreme Court case, I don't think that there will be an appeal. And so we're concerned about that. We raised this issue in the House. And it was very intentional that they included that in the bill. And if there is a conference committee, I'm sure this will come
I
up.
was just gonna say,
Yeah.
there'll be a you go to conference. I think you will, but who knows, and even if we didn't, this was one of those, we're out of time and the way to get to an agreed upon document was to say, we're now remain silent on it. Not because I was agreeing to something, but because we couldn't agree to the way to structure it.
No, I was, so partly I just wanted to make sure it wasn't crazy. And and secondly, because I don't think you guys have discussed it. I don't remember it being discussed. So anyway, I have to go now deal with the other issue. McKay is
Indirect
here.
discharge?
What's that?
Is it indirect discharge?
It's the same exact provision that's in the miscellaneous ag bill that was in the proposed amendment from Senator Ron Insell. So it's just popping up like weeds and
Yeah.
everywhere now. But anyway, so thank you for letting me say that. I just wanted to flag that.
Keeping an eye on that.
Yeah.
And just so you know, the bill that is now on notice that includes that provision.
Right.
I've been working with Senator Starr in the corner office that manage that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Basically, if that's gonna stay in that bill is gonna get referred here.
Yeah, I hope so, because it's really, yeah, we can talk about that. It's another,
Okay, thanks.
so thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It's that time of year. Ooh. How many believe?
So on page 43, there's some additional language added to the accessory dwelling unit, exemption, and so the Senate Economic Development Committee did have some discussion about this, and this language actually came out of the discussions they were having, but I think it falls in line with the discussions you had as well, and so, until 2028, no permit for one accessory dwelling unit constructed within or pertinent to a single family dwelling. And so one per single family.
Pretty straightforward, clear way to see. Any questions on that one? 2028, you mentioned that while we're there, so we have been talking about exemption through 27. They wanted to go to 29. 30, but so we split the difference and went to 28. Knowing there's other legislatures coming that will have a chance to adjust money. All right, thank you. Oh, and there's a little more on 43.
Yeah, so there's different housing exemptions. The first one has only one small change in it. It's 75 units of housing constructed in a new town center, growth center, or NDA. In the prior version, it had that downtown with a half mile around it. That has been moved to its own section, sort of, on the next page. And so on page 44 and 45, now there is an exemption, again through 2028, for the construction of any housing within a downtown.
So the negotiation, the back and forth was, if you're in a, the way we've been defining traditional designated downtowns so far, that there's no limit on the amount of housing you can develop. It'll be I shouldn't say no, it'll be municipally decided how much house to go out, but at 250. Well, there is no trigger based on the number of units built anymore in the designated area. For housing. That's designated downtown. Okay. Then the expanded designated area, and that's just designated downtown. Other flavors like in the development areas, growth centers, new town center are are not included in that. We have to remove housing commission. Priority housing projects, the people offering them to help make them an attractive proposition. They are built without a can through the expanded version of the centers, and it's not just designated downtowns, but also NDA, NPCs, and growth centers. So we're still leaning into broader opportunities that help priority housing projects become attractive proposition, but here in the Senator Hinsdale's point, I think, was the representation of the towns that are eligible for this. I think there are 23. That, oh, I'm sorry, thank you. That they're ready, willing, and able to take this on, and so why decide for them? So, this was another one of those, we're at the boundaries of comfort thing. As best I can tell. This, I think the biggest, maybe the most meaningful change since we last looked at it in committee. It's definitely different. Really different. Do you want to say it in a way different than I just sort of recount?
No.
Okay. All right. Anybody?
What did we get?
Did we get? It's a good question. While I think of a good answer, Ms. Sullivan had her hand up. I'm buying time, exactly.
The exemption will not apply to areas within Mac River corridors.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want.
You can't build where your home is going to be,
No,
what is very likely, okay.
You can't put lots of homes there too.
Right.
So,
right, yeah, we're not building, we're not allowing, we're sticking to no building underwater. That's still in the bill.
The Atlanta version.
I don't.
We didn't
I
have.
don't really, I would say, well, to step back from like the details. My sense was that we're at this unprecedented moment in terms of the characterization of what's holding a power. And we are facing pretty strong headwinds in terms of people saying Act 250 is the problem. And I think it's way more complex, cost of money, the record levels of income inequality that have people making it difficult to afford life period, not just housing. Shortages in workforce, increasing cost of materials for construction. So this is part of what I think is what we're doing is we're running an experiment. We're saying we're removing Act 250 from these areas for the purpose of housing. And I think what we get is that we're rebuilding the board and we're looking to the future for how to have a strong board for the next 50 years. A strong mechanism to do thoughtful planning, through the tier system and improved maps, citizen engagement, so that Act 250 will remain vital. So I think it's kind of like whole, letting the experiment run, observing what happens, learning from it, and meanwhile building a strong board. Not so that I'm not anticipating, so we like clamp down in the future. I just feel like for the time being, it'll be interesting to see. We've heard take this obstacle out of the way, we'll get housing done. Let's see what happens. I hope we end up out right. I hope it's well cited, well planned, well balanced. And I think the best constraints we can offer is that we lean into the designations we've already come up with. And then also, I think we're gonna have to be attentive to supporting municipalities.
Yes.
Some will be gung ho, ready to go, strong offices. Others will have opportunities to see, I think of So Bristol, we have a designated downtown. If someone showed up somehow, we do an unlimited size housing project and not designated downtown. That would be a challenge for a town community. And maybe that there are people at home who are home down. And that's for me is to give and get piece that we're allowing for a managed experiment. That opens up a lot of opportunity for housing. The redrawing of the boundaries, expanded areas, adds a lot of space for growth. And it's adjacent to designated, already designated areas, so. So it maximizes the smart growth strategy.
Is
So what's it?
is the
And then right now,
is the 1/2 mile and 1/4 mile buffer expansion still in here? For the interim?
right, but not for. What?
Which parts are they in? Do you remember?
Well, there at village centers,
Yeah.
there's a village center, for modification from 50 units.
Okay,
And then for expanded areas, you can do priority housing projects without, in the expanded areas. And that is growth centers, designated downtowns and NDAs.
so it's just priority housing
For the 1/2 mile range.
for the 1/2 mile rate,
Not other forms of construction,
okay.
not like we're saying commercial, industrial,
Mhm.
you're out. It's really, it's very housing focused.
Okay.
And like,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate your description of what we got, and I do hope that this does create housing. I hope it doesn't create housing that is not. My only concern, and even like historically today, just reading the rise of condos and kind of the second homeowner housing. That happened at a certain point in Vermont's history. I hope that as we continue to see growth. Hopefully out of this bill, that it's the type of housing that I think all collectively want. And not a continuation of the cycle of certain people having access to housing, because that's the profitable housing.
yeah, I've said, I work on it through when I'm not here and. A lot of people I know are working on, they may be for local people, but they're pretty high-end projects.
Yeah, I mean, I said we had a Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and I said, there is not a contractor shortage, from my understanding. There is a contractor huddle at the top. You can find contractors in the state. They're all at one job in Norwich. There is a concern that I am supportive of this, and I hope that the trust that we have and the faith in our other committee and their work bears out a good outcome.
Well, there was just announced, for instance, so I get uneasy immediately when we start talking about out of staters, that kind of thing.
Yeah, not out of staters, but it could be from.
Well, second homeowners, because I'm just not drawn into like characterizing people that way, in state, out of state, and how they are, maybe they're sucking up housing. We just never mandated who's allowed to buy, and it gets into some pretty dicey territory. But since you're a historian, there is a great report that talks about the change in Vermont with the Constable Commission that Matt was convened. And it issued a report in 1988, and one of the stunning things it tracks the change in population in Vermont. And from I don't remember this number correctly, but from something like 1960 to 1980, something like 200,000 people moved to Vermont.
1960, 1980.
200,000. In Wyndham County, 46% of the housing starts were second. So it was like a massive change. And we're still dealing with waves of that. Killington just announced a 2,300 unit development. Probably a great project. I was looking at the architects who are doing. See, I mean, Habitat 67 at Montreal Expo. Probably a fabulous thing. A huge housing project. I don't know that any Vermonters are going to live there, other than there's a workforce village that they're planning to develop as part of
And also buying up existing houses in the seventies. Became apparent that I find, if I have this right, there was not a single property in Warren Village owned by anyone who was there prior to Sugarloaf shooting. All those.
No, Chair McDonald, you were moving your hand about 10 minutes ago, I'm sorry, come back.
Well, I mean, you prefaced your remarks by the world in which, that characterize the world in which we live. And now we're looking at, solutions that appear to ignore the world in which we live. When someone says we need to create a strong board, what's the difference between a strong board and a strong man? A strong man in the political sense. I just throw myself in, hey, why not put landlords and builders in charge of citizens' housing? Why not? That sounds like a good idea.
Well, you want to hear from them, they certainly know something about the subject.
No, I
You don't want to give them carte blanche.
understood what I'm saying. You don't want to create this cabal. Who's gonna solve the problems that the chair talked about when he started talking about income inequality? And the inability of people who work hard to be able to afford to buy something. This is a. This is straight meaning or tackling the problem. Or tax rate incentives.
Every once in a while, I just feel like we're trying to push a rope.
Kind of what?
Push a rope.
Push what?
All right, so let's segue back to the changes in language.
Yes,
page
I have to
44.
give it 10, just so you know.
Yeah, I think we're so right on track.
So next on page 51, so I think something that you will haven't heard out loud, but has been under discussion is the fact that there were 4 positions created on this bill that both Senate Finance and Senate Appropriations, I guess, had intended to take out because they're not budgeted for in the big budget, and they left them. So they are struck from this draft with the blessing. So I'm gonna walk through them. So with the blessing of those committees, there was the ask that they didn't happen in here, so we didn't have to redo their amendments. So first on page 51, section 30 had been the biologist position for the Department of Fish and Wildlife to assist in this act. And then the other 2 are a little bit later. They actually might be next because it's 61 and 62. But there's not a lot of money right now for here.
So 30 just deletes the fish and wildlife one.
Just deletes the fish and wildlife one, the other ones are coming up. On page 86, this, you did discuss this yesterday, but you haven't seen it, so the language for duplexes. So it is, 4plexes shall be allowed on the same side, shall be a permitted use on the same size lot as a single family dwelling unit. Unless the district specifically requires multi-use premises to have more than that. And then on page 88, as Senator Watson did already mention. In section 53, this is the list of facilities that municipalities can regulate limited aspects of, and so it is adding hotels and motels converted to permanently affordable housing developments. Your committee had been discussing whether or not that should be limited to each, for units that have full, you know, food preparation, sanitation, sleeping facilities, i.e. housing. The Southern Economic Development Committee wanted this to be broader than just that. With the possibility of adding, this would potentially cover other types of units than just conventional apartment style units. So,
So I think some of how things. They're watching you got onto the email loops, you were on it before I was. But. The HCD had a concern about. Some of their projects might not be able to satisfy that kitchen requirement that are the case.
We don't know what the kitchen requirement is, we're not gonna define it, we don't know what food preparation means. So that'll be left to, you know, interpreters and judges and whatever, because we haven't done it.
Well, right, because it's not in here. Right.
Oh, it's gone. It is gone, like it's not,
It's like
it's
under
under,
say food preparation.
and it's because they.
So it says even less.
They don't have to do
it.
Yeah, I think it's worth revisiting, but it was. BHCB doesn't usually, I would say. Think of them as careful about trying to get the most possibly done to help most people get from. Poorer housing situations to better, and if they, for the moment. Needed more flexibility. And. The other communities doing it, this is very clearly a housing thing, so. I have some concerns about what it might mean. But I also felt like. We will have time to revisit it. There wants, you want to say more about this, I think you were the most deeply involved.
Was, I am, well, as I mentioned, I'm bummed that it's out. One hypothesis is that VHCB will be a good big factor, and one of the things I had this conversation, with Senator Ron Hillsdale, before I think you all met, but, you know, thinking that, you know, particularly for the rooms that are not single occupancy rooms or whatever, right, that they might do like a shared kitchen.
Okay, yeah.
And sure, fine, shared kitchen works. Coming out of that conversation, I would have thought that there would have been language in here to say that food, you know, some kind of food service or food preparation would be available, or that there would, you know, some language about like a shared food preparation space. I thought some kind of language would remain, but so bummed that it's not here.
I actually thought we would see some intermediate language, not just gone.
Right.
Certainly become.
We're turning. We're looking to go, we're gonna turn over to others to administer and adjudicate. And when we get to something we find difficult to define, we, rather than seek to make it more clear, we say we don't need to worry about that because others will do the defining. That seems to be what's going on, and aren't we supposed to lay out the rules, whether how the rules will be created, rather than just say we can't figure that out. Well, you know, I wrote a note about this will be the overseers, the sheriffs, the bill collectors, and the interpreters are going to be the ones that dictate or refine what we have chosen not to tackle. And in an environment described by the chair, when working people can't afford to afford homes. And if they have them, they're. It just seems. Hope that everything. Work out because everybody in this room are good people trying to do the right thing.
You know, as I see upstairs, I find your point well taken.
Mhm.
You want it? I find your point well taken. You know, so maybe how about this, we may be going to conference. And, this to me feels well within the range of things that can get converted out and resolved, so. How about we
Yeah,
do-
we are going.
Right, like if the bill goes to conference, there's opportunity, I mean, the bill will go to conferences to amend to get rid of human rights, so. This to me feels like something that could be in play, so if you wanna keep on working, then I think that. Members, I feel also appreciate it. And maybe there'll be a chance to make, bring better language to the table. But for now, we have to argue for what we're bringing, but it doesn't mean that there can't be a discussion about something. And both sides say this is actually an improvement. Thanks, Senator Collins. So we're thanks to us here.
We're sending it to people to do what we have said for ourselves, we're gonna pay for. And I hope that our conference committee will be wiser, more thoughtful and. I don't think we met the expectations for ourselves that we thought we had a couple weeks ago. And we're turning it over to someone else. Or waiting.
Well, it's always, it's a program that's evolving, so one, in the very near term, it could be that in the next week. We actually end up with a final bill law. Then the other possibility is that, the next legislature comes back and makes a further adjustment. Okay, so, good morning, Mr. Commissioner. Hello. We're up to section 60. I believe, oh, sorry, no, section page 92.
So apparently after I left yesterday, you all made some changes to page section 59. So this is on who can appeal municipal decisions. And so currently in statute, it is any 10 persons who are voters, residents, or property owners. The bill thus far had been 25 persons or 3% of the population. And so this is going back to just 25 persons may appeal. So. Okay, and
Senator White, so here's one where you could say, oh, the last change we made is in there and the other committee accepted because Burlington could have been 1,200. At the 3% level. And
Yay.
let's go to 60 and then I'll check in with the commissioner.
More democracy.
Mr. Commissioner, you're not usually in here when we're doing the housing activity bill, so
Zero
good
well.
morning, are you here to?
I just need to talk to you about something else, but I don't want to interrupt.
Oh,
So I'll come back at 10.
All right.
That's what I was checking.
great, thank you, see you then.
Thank you.
so section 60 was related to the 3% issue. That language had to be changed in 2 places, and so that striking section 60 further gets rid of the percentage change. If you'd like some more details on that, I can keep that, but
I know, thank you. All right,
great.
What we love
25.
and if they don't have 25 people with a panel.
So many both sides.
Right, if you don't have 25 people in town. I don't know, I think we still are good even in victory at 60, sorry, or.
So a person who lives in the the area of the development. And I can get you the specific language, still has the ability to appeal, so any single person who lives within the area of the development who has. A potential impact, potential environmental concern, I'm not getting the language right, still has the ability to appeal. This provision is usually used for people who don't live in the immediate vicinity of the development.
How do we define area of the development?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Bigger than just a, could be bigger than a.
It's the immediate neighborhood of the property that is subject to the decision. And I do not know how that has been further defined.
Were you concerned that we may make it too hard for a very small?
It would seem to me that as the count gets smaller and smaller, the number of people. One might switch to a. Computer number.
Yes, here it doesn't.
It's bigger.
So, we had, I think because of this, we ran out of time, we left it alone, but it was. The other formulation was just that you had brought up, and we briefly touched on with. Using that rural, non-rural threshold, whatever it is, 5 towns of 5,000 or more, or towns of less than 5,000. There's a number for one and a number for other. So I'm gonna put flag, we figure out something more nuanced than that, so that. People in Victory or Fuel Score, I don't know how, what happens when they work on one.
It's a gore.
Or is, what is it, Laura?
No, it is a gore.
It is a gore.
So you could get a that.
Yeah, and there's only, I think, 28 residents.
Well, there's-
I believe in Fuel Score, it might be up to 43 now.
3 of them are gonna be really annoyed with 25 of them.
This time. Okay, so putting a flag out, all right, let's keep going, please.
Alright, so the last changes are on page 97, so the other 2 sections that have been struck. And this, they may not have been 63 and 64 in the prior drafts, I can't remember, but the other 2 provisions that are struck were first. 2 positions related to climate resilience. There was a position for ACCD to administer the climate resiliency grants. That position has been struck, as well as a position at the Department of Environmental Conservation to administer revolving loan fund grants, water stuff. That position has been struck. And then also the additional judge for the Superior Court has been struck. Because that is in the budget, I do not know how many judges were in the Senate's version of the budget, but there are 3 in the House's version, so I think that will be potentially part of their budget discussions.
Are those appropriation amendments?
They were requested generally, yes, but yeah.
So the 2, one, they're both at ACCD or.
One was at ACCD and one was at DEC.
Thank you, and then the other was a judge for Superior. Which we think is else, so that I'm not aware of the. Money for ACCD and DEC on climate resilience. But was. Do I get this right, that there is money elsewhere in the budget, as best you know. For additional judge at Superior Court.
Potentially, I do not know where they live. I haven't had time to read the Senate's version of the budget, so I don't know where they landed. I believe they were. And I think it's gonna be part of the budget negotiation, but
Well, I
that
know,
was over my head.
wow, folks, I think, RES, I can't remember, but in there quite a few times lately. They, said we'll take care of a judge, but we're gonna do anything tonight. Right, so those are our last changes.
Yes.
Those are unfortunate. As you know, I've resisted all along the idea that the environmental protection on that is to blame for the housing shortage, but to whatever extent it is a problem. Part of it, if it's slow, part of that is because of being understand. You know, and to the extent that it is a problem. Again, I'm not convinced that it's much of a problem. Whatever extent it's a problem, that could be addressed. With more people.
Well, for instance, I've heard that wetlands determinations are taking 4 months. And that's a good chunk of the building season, to the extent of the building season. And I've heard frustration that it's too bad that they could get turned around pretty fast. So that's, and as I understand, it's a staffing limitation. Can you tell us more, also, just so we know exactly what we have in front of us, the summary. How, sort of. The summary for the document we just walked through. Is that right? There's no notes or something about what used to be or the changes. This is just an outline exactly what we're bringing to the floor.
So, there are actually a couple of small notes in it.
Okay.
So, the summary document reflects what is in this amendment. And so it doesn't highlight changes. Other than on page 2, there is a statement that this amendment removes the appeals of Act 250 from the jurisdictional opinions going to the board. So that's kind of a reader's say.
Okay.
And then for the environmental justice section, I also included a description that it pushed back all the dates for 2 years. So otherwise, I didn't necessarily like make characterizations.
Sure.
I will say I did find 2 typos in it so far, and so if I have time, I'm like go fix them, because I assume you're gonna hand this out on the floor.
I think that's a good assumption.
Yeah.
People will need a roadmap.
So if there is time, I would like to go try to fix them,
Okay.
but yes.
We divvy up the sections, and we can talk through that at this point, or?
Yeah. So I just want to make sure we can say goodbye to council for the time being, ASAP. Anything else we need council for? No, okay. So when you have that, and you send it down and yeah, and we'll get Olivia as well, thank you. I'm just thinking about one of the, to get 40 copies of it for it. Am I, is it okay for me to say, could you please send it to copy room as well? To request the 40 copies?
Me?
Yes. That way, if I'm not looking at a device, I won't slow the whole process down.
Perhaps we could ask the committee assistant to do that, because I'm going to leave here and go to 2 other committees at the moment.
Okay.
So if I have time even to do this just now, I will.
I don't know if you're, can you keep an eye out for that email with the next draft? Thank you. And if you can send it to copy room over 40, we'll bring it to the floor. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anything else? For council steps out on. Thank you so much.
I have a question, sorry. For me?
Yes.
Do you
find it?
No. The section by section, is this for the amendment or for the underlying bill or for both?
It's for the amendment.
For the amendment. Do we have such a document for the underlying bill?
That's one, yeah.
What is the underlying thing?
Oh, the,
Report.
well, because this is the whole. I got you.
So you
Because it's-
did have a section by section.
We'll
Yes,
go it out.
there is, so yes, there is a section by section of what your committee voted out.
Okay,
If you can't find it on your webpage,
could be under your name.
I hope it is, but then again,
I can give you, I have a copy.
That will be used for the back half, because the amendment is for section 171.
oh, well, so the whole bill is in that.
Oh, the whole bill is in here, including,
Yes,
oh, okay.
including John and Kirby's section.
Oh, right, because it goes up to section 114.
That's,
Okay.
yes, it does.
Only 114 sections.
I mean, listen, you guys, I've been really trying to keep track of all of this. Here, you can
Oh,
have this.
nice.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
now I'm gonna leave, and please don't ask anything else.
You're amazing, thank you.
But no, really, I'm gonna go into other committees, but then I assume I will be lurking for the caucus.
We're hope you'll learn.
Please
learn for the, learn.
So in the. I have questions. Okay.
Watch you lurking in the corner.
Yeah, defend that name, you know, it's a good.
It's a good thing, it's good.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. So we have a roadmap for the whole thing. Our task is gonna be to report. Well, so let's go through the maps. My thought was, although we have the whole floor report, when a natural break for us would be to report up to where we get to what the finance and appropriations reports take over, especially finance, and center around Hinsdale's reporting of the finance. So I think that could be our full reporting handoff, just split when we get to the money. So that takes, and actually that takes us through 67, not 71, because we start to get into money in 68. So,
So you're gonna start us off,
let's start us off.
and you're gonna give like an intro, blah, blah, blah. Feels great, and then you're gonna do sections 1 through.
Yeah, so let's figure out how to chunk it out in a way that makes sense.
Looks like. You should probably do 1 through 9. Wrong.
Well, so I guess if we're gonna. We have basically 67 seconds to report. So we could aim for sort of groups of 20-ish, but that may not be a very good way to do it. The math may be very different than the number of pages involved.
And I would make the case that I feel like you or other members of the committee have more history or depth knowledge on some of these things than I do. For example, I'm thinking about the road rule, right? Like, for example, like you all might know far more about the road rule than I do. And the accessory on-farm businesses, you know what I mean? One hypothesis is that those are new, and so it'd be appropriate for somebody new to report it, but maybe not. And the list that I gave you of sections I was willing to report, that was the only list I didn't make my own copy of this. So, I just gotta remember.
And it's on my dresser.
Oh, okay, that's all right, I can roughly recreate.
Because I took it out of my pocket, and I think all the notes, I had a lot of notes, but I didn't.
So one of the things that I'm just gonna.
Yes,
This is not, section
Break
1 through 20,
rotation.
whatever.
Yeah, like 1 through 20 seems like it hangs, because then the next thing is location-based jurisdiction, which is a whole
Right,
top.
like I feel like I could explain the new tiers.
Oh,
Like the steady state, I feel like I can explain that.
Like starting at 21.
Potentially, yeah,
Nice.
and tier 3, if,
So how about if we started at 21? But
Okay.
if we can figure out where the lines are, and
Okay,
it seems like people
21
just keep right now going to the 38 or something.
If I interrupt you, do we have another of the
Oh,
normal
We
table? I had one, I think I gave it to someone, I don't.
This,
Yeah.
the section by
there's another
section.
one. I had it. I found
I
it.
can pull it up on my computer if you wanna use
Okay,
this.
yeah, thanks.
And maybe Olivia would be kind enough to.
Okay, so we're 38, what's 38?
38 comes in, the brief there would be EJ.
Oh,
Well, let's see, 3 VSA 6004.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the EJ stuff too, or if you wanna do the EJ stuff, that's pretty
Pretty straightforward, Department of Justice Council, so 39, 40, 41. Those and 43, that's all one, two, in one topic.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
39 through 43.
Okay. We know, there's a bunch.
So so far you're 20 through 39,
Through 43,
20 through 40,
if I'm doing the EJ stuff.
yeah.
Right.
And then that's the amicus one.
Sarah McCormick,
Yeah.
44.
Okay, and what did we finally do with that? Allowed and allowed not. So that is still in the bill.
Yeah, the lady who's gotten two. There is, oh, yeah, we're gonna see it, that, then we're talking judges, one, I gave that language to Senator Spears yesterday. He sent it off to, Judge Zoning to look at. And so. You wanna check in with Senator Spears. Before floor and just say, are we good to go?
I'm saying 44 on something.
I'm saying 44.
Yeah.
There's another thing, there was just a portion of the bill that we let stay in. It said judges at the environmental division shall aspire to do things within 90 days or whatever, right? Which,
We're not telling them, we're saying it'd be great.
yeah, and well, I would have loved to have. Dropped that language. Because it's odd, that's not another branch of government what to do. It's in there. It's an aspirational expression. Anyway. Senator Howard Sheen has been digging into the details of the timing requirements in the appeals process at Superior Court. And he's gonna be offering an amendment that he's worked out with Judge Zoning to fine tune the language so that it's not creating basically a virtual impossibility, like they were gonna only be left with like 5 days to do the hearing or something like that. If the things, I forget, this is not right, but if the time for discovery and interrogatories played out to its slowest extent, then it was gonna only need like 5 days to get the whole case done. And that's not an accurate description, but that was the point that he worked on. Okay, so you pick up at 44. So let's look at what comes right after and checking to see our new game for continuing on to then start reporting out, like 46 to 50, stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay, because then there's a very big shift in conversation. We go at 51, it goes to municipal. And Sarah, White, you seem very active on municipal.
Oh, and I would love to report the sections with all the things I disagree with. That would be phenomenal. That would just be a real treat. Happy to do it.
Okay, you win. That's a winning pitch if I've ever heard this. There you go.
Why not?
Okay, so for McCormick, you have 44 through, I'm sorry, 50.
Yes.
And I have 51.
51, we're cruising on for natural.
And what are we doing?
Tax credits.
The first, well, we can do this in two ways. One is we're gonna stand up there and do this caucus as a whole, casual conversation.
Yes.
Yes. And today,
T-minus.
and then there'll be an actual floor report, so you can sign up for presenting it both or one.
Like, so we're doing it on the floor report.
Yeah, you could do either the conversation.
Well, let me see what I've agreed to do. I haven't,
Okay, check it out. If you wanna pare back,
presumably we're all.
Well, there.
Familiar.
right, but someone's gonna have to explain the future land maps, and so, well, let's have a plan B.
Right,
Are
right.
you game for doing future land use map?
Okay, wait, can I just go back? So Dick has 44 through 50.
Yes.
I start at 51.
Yes.
So So the senator from Windsor will yield to the senator from Windsor,
Yeah.
the junior senator from Windsor, and then I'm gonna go from 51 till where? Till
Well,
67?
so we're gonna go through, we need to go to 67. Senator McDonald, do you see anything in the home stretch you would like to be the reporter of? We've got resilience planning, designated area.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Would you like to
If
do more?
I get drafted to do something, I would do my best, as I have in the past. I get drafted.
I feel like drafting, maybe we want you to enlist, I think.
Yeah, we're only looking for enlistment. If you wanna.
There were wars I don't enlist, wouldn't have enlisted.
Okay, so how about
That's fair.
Senator White, can you take it home?
So I think this, I would jump in, cause this section's tough. If you don't want the whole, cause are you suggesting that Senator White
Do all the things I have adamantly opposed throughout the entire process.
68 through.
No, we're stopping at 68.
Oh, we're stopping at 60.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we are stopping,
That
meaning that
means that then
economic development.
economic development,
Oh.
we need to explain everything after that.
I'm happy to go through 67.
Okay.
If that is
67 is our finish.
Okay,
51 through 67, happy to do it.
when we get to the full report, will, so economic development be reporting on 68 through 114?
Well, so I have to, that's what I talked with Senator Hinsdale about, but I'm gonna make sure that there's, we got that baton pass all very explicitly worked out.
Okay.
So, you were fine with taking us through the 67?
Yes,
And your baton pass will be to a member.
and I yield to the chair of the Senate Economic Development Committee,
There you go.
that's in
Southeast.
I still haven't gotten that down.
No.
The other part of it.
Okay. Excellent.
Can't visualize, but.
No, well, it doesn't even make sense when you look at the top there.
But the map is a little wonky. Okay, excellent. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, do a lot of deep breathing and.
Yeah, one of us, Senator McDonald, one of us goes down, we're gonna count.
Yeah.
You can fill in.
Refer to the. I wish
Senator from Warren.
yield to the Senator Orange.
Yeah, but
That's my job on school trips.
Let's see.
Drive a vehicle and when the unexpected happens to deal with it.
It'll be well equipped for the Senate.
Okay, so are we doing anything else for the remainder of the morning?
No, I figure other than being ready for
Okay,
getting on the
Now,
floor.
can I just fully-
For 11, our presentation starts about 30,
can I just fully confirm, so you're 1 through 20,
1 through 20.
and is 21 through 43. And then Dick is 44 through 50, then I'm 51 through 67, and then the rest we say Senate. Okay,
That's the same.
wonderful, okay, just wanted to make sure I had, and you're gonna do an opener, and you're gonna
Opener.
explain the process and where we got to it.
Thing in the finale.
And this is, we're not speaking to the underlying bill, we're speaking to the amendment. So we don't need to speak to start, you're gonna give a walkthrough.
So thanks for that. So when we do, no. This assignment, it's a little tricky.
Yeah, that's-
So things have shifted a bit.
this across the board.
Yeah, it works good.
I felt it was, the reason I'm wincing is I'm realizing some sections have moved around. So it's not like we can just say, 1 through 20 is gonna be exactly the same 1 through 20. So we need to do our best to map the topics we're taking onto our committee report.
Would you be willing to do a short, I mean, like, could you do like a
Yeah.
shorter version, say, I'm not actually gonna do a section by section of the underlying bill, I'm
Right.
just
I
gonna
think that
tell you.
makes the most sense.
Yeah, cause if we tried to do both, I think that would be, it would be even more confused. And if you explain that in the practice as a whole, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's, I think it'll be tough enough for people to learn it once. Not to learn the old version and then wipe the slate clean and install a new one. So, yeah, I think that I'll walk through at 100,000 foot level of the report and say, we're gonna go through in detail. When we get to the amendment.
And do we need to do any kind of vote or committee sign on to
I think-
this new version?
I think, yeah, we will want, because this is a formal amendment, we'll, although one way that we're indicating to the room what we think is because we're, as individual senators offering amendment, that's the biggest way of speaking. But we're a committed jurisdiction, so we should take a committee vote on what we feel about the whole amendment.
Okay, and do we need to take a vote on the finance or appropriation thing at all?
Or no, just, on this, so for your record, then I'd say, we're voting on draft 4.1. Dated 5/1/24. 9:35 PM. And it's 8/6/8.
Oh,
So, any further committee discussion? This? Roll, please.
Senator McDonald,
Yes.
Senator McCormick,
Yes.
Senator Watson.
Yes.
Senator White, yes, Chair Brown.
Yes. Thank you. So as part of the report,
And then
I'll be saying that our committee supports the amendment
that's
on 500.
Who was it? Who used to answer?
Yes.
that was Yakamoni. He is,
He
right?
was a senator.
I know there's some, I like Senator Ingles' way of voting. No. Yes, the kids are, very distinctive.
Oh,
No. It's kind of, it's a very, like a song, he's over there sort of howling, got it still a beagle in that one.
I remember Oregon one time fell asleep. And they really like. Head back.
Oh, no.
Sorry, and it was a roll call. And he was at a corner seat.
Dear.
And next to him was Wayne. Who despised. And,
we are still on live.
this is great. This is oral history. Anyway, as they were calling the roll, they kept looking at Senator Finn. Are you gonna wake him? Please wake him, and he would, finally, they call Hargan and Senator Hargan. No.
This Francis word.
Yeah.
Are we done?
We are done, thank you for